June 12, 2023, a single-family home in Phoenix, Arizona hits the market at 11:07 a.m. By 11:49 a.m., 42 minutes later, the offer is accepted. Cash. No inspection contingency, no mortgage, no human ever walked through the door. The buyer is a subsidiary of a company headquartered in a glass tower on Park Avenue in Manhattan. The family who wanted that house had been pre-approved for their mortgage since February. They never had a chance. This is not an isolated incident. This is a business model, and the company at the center of it, the company that manages more money than the GDP of China, Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom combined, is one that most Americans have never meaningfully thought about. Its name is BlackRock. Its assets under management as of 2025 sit at $11.6 trillion. To put that in a unit of measurement that fits inside a human brain, if you stacked $1 bills flat on top of each other, $11.6 trillion would reach a height of 789,000 miles. That is more than 3 round trips to the moon. And it is buying your country. Not metaphorically, literally. The architecture of BlackRock's power is built on 3 interlocking systems, each one invisible until you understand how they connect. The first system is real estate. The second is government influence. The third is the software that silently controls the financial decisions of institutions that control your savings, your pension, and your government bonds. Each system is legal. Each system is disclosed somewhere, in documents that almost nobody reads. Together, they represent a concentration of economic influence with no precedent in American financial history. Start with real estate. Between 2012 and 2025, institutional investors, led by Invitation Homes, a Blackstone spinoff with deep BlackRock ties, and by BlackRock-linked funds directly, purchased approximately 574,000 single-family homes across the United States. Phoenix, Atlanta, Charlotte, Dallas, Tampa. The cities where this buying was concentrated are precisely the cities where home prices rose fastest and first-time homebuyer rates collapsed fastest. In Atlanta, institutional investors owned more than 1 in 5 single-family rental homes by 2024. In the Phoenix metro area, during the peak buying period from 2021 to 2023, institutional purchases accounted for 28% of all cash sales. The mechanism is not complex. It just requires scale that no individual can compete with. A fund with $50 billion to deploy can buy 300 homes in a week. A family with a pre-approval letter cannot. Every home bought at a premium by an institutional fund is a home that exits the ownership market permanently and enters the rental market indefinitely. The tenant who might have become an owner instead pays rent to a fund for the rest of their life. The wealth that would have accumulated through equity is captured by the fund instead. Multiply that by 574,000 homes. Then multiply that by the fact that this is only one sector. BlackRock is the largest shareholder in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and Meta simultaneously. It holds between 4% and 8% of every company in the S&P 500. It is the top 3 shareholders of 88% of S&P 500 companies. Think about what that means. When BlackRock votes its shares at a shareholder meeting, and it manages its voting through a system called Aladdin, it is simultaneously the largest or near largest voice in almost every major American corporation. Airlines, banks, pharmaceutical companies, defense contractors, media companies. One entity, one set of priorities, one investment philosophy, shaping the boardroom decisions of the entire American economy. And then there is Aladdin. Aladdin, asset, liability, debt, and derivative investment network, is the software platform BlackRock built in the 1980s and has refined into the most powerful financial risk management system on Earth. Today, Aladdin manages risk analysis for $21 trillion in assets across more than 200 financial institutions worldwide. That includes central banks. That includes sovereign wealth funds. That includes the U.S. Federal Reserve, which hired BlackRock to help manage its bond buying programs during both the 2008 financial crisis and the 2020 COVID emergency response. Read that sentence again. The Federal Reserve, the institution that sets monetary policy for the world's reserve currency, hired a private asset manager to help execute that policy. And the fee structure of that arrangement was never publicly disclosed. This is the layer underneath the layer. BlackRock's influence is not just economic, it is regulatory. In 2020, when the Fed needed to deploy $750 billion in corporate bond purchases as part of the CARES Act emergency response, it hired BlackRock as its primary agent. BlackRock then went into the market and bought corporate bonds, including bonds issued by companies in which BlackRock managed funds held equity stakes. The Fed's Inspector General flagged potential conflicts of interest. BlackRock acknowledged them. Nothing changed. In the European Union, when the European Commission needed a consultant to help design new sustainable finance regulations in 2020, it hired BlackRock. BlackRock then produced a report recommending that ESG standards be integrated into EU banking regulations that would apply to BlackRock's competitors. The EU Parliament voted to reject the report on conflict of interest grounds. The report had already been used to draft key sections of the proposed regulation. These are not accusations. These are documented, reported facts, available in congressional testimony, EU parliamentary records, and Fed audit reports. They are simply not connected for you in the same paragraph very often. Here is where it connects to your life specifically. Your 401k is almost certainly invested in a BlackRock product. The iShares family of ETFs, owned entirely by BlackRock, controls approximately $3.4 trillion in assets and represents the majority of passive index fund investment by American retail investors. When you buy an index fund, there is a better than 40% chance you are handing your money to BlackRock to manage. The fee is tiny, sometimes 0.03%. The scale multiplied by millions of accounts is not tiny at all. But the deeper implication of that fee relationship is something that never gets discussed in a financial literacy class. BlackRock profits whether your investments go up or down. Their fee is a percentage of assets under management, which means that the institution advising your government, shaping corporate boardrooms, and setting the risk parameters for your pension fund has a financial interest in your money staying exactly where it is, inside their products, regardless of what happens to the market around it. Your losses do not cost them money. Your confusion keeps them rich. And then there is the political dimension that makes the real estate and the Aladdin systems even more alarming when viewed together. Larry Fink, the co-founder and CEO of BlackRock, has held formal and informal advisory roles with multiple administrations. He was a candidate for Treasury Secretary under 2 different presidents. BlackRock alumni have rotated through senior positions at the Treasury Department, the Federal Reserve, and the SEC. The academic term for this is regulatory capture. The street term is the revolving door. And when the same individual can spend a decade running the firm that advises the Federal Reserve, then step into a regulatory position that oversees that same firm, the line between the regulator and the regulated becomes difficult to locate. None of this is illegal. That is the point. The architecture of BlackRock's power is specifically designed to operate entirely within the law, because the law is written by people who understand that architecture and have chosen not to constrain it. Now consider what it means to have one company simultaneously managing your retirement savings, owning your home's competitor property, advising your government on financial regulation, operating the software that tells your pension fund how to assess risk, rotating its executives through the regulatory bodies meant to oversee it, and holding controlling stakes in every major employer where you might work. That is not ownership of one corner of the economy. That is ownership of the architecture of the economy itself. 3 moments. 1 company. Phoenix in 2023, where a family lost a home to an algorithm. Washington in 2020, where a private firm shaped public monetary policy. Brussels in 2020, where a corporation advised governments on how to regulate corporations. Each moment legal. Each moment disclosed. Each moment unprecedented. The question that nobody is willing to answer, not in Congress, not in the European Parliament, not in any central bank, is this. At what point does concentration of ownership stop being capitalism and start being something that capitalism has never actually named? Because the line, if there is one, is getting very hard to see.